We're back on the floor Tuesday, hosting the Detroit Pistons and looking sluggish and generally unspectacular until Tyler Herro and Max Strus saved the night with some incredible shooting in the second half. But while Miami came away with a win, did they lose Jimmy Butler to injury? And are there more questions about Miami's rotations with the postseason just weeks away? We'll break down the game and answer your questions on this live postgame edition of Locked On Heat.
Are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Wednesday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat, however you may be listening on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for making your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. This is a special live episode of Locked On Heat, and it's brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out PrizePicks.com, use the promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy after a 3-day break. The Heat were back on the floor on Tuesday night, hosting the Detroit Pistons, who were missing their Rookie of the Year candidate, Cade Cunningham. And the Heat had Jimmy Butler back in the lineup. Yay, after he had missed Saturday's game against the Timberwolves. At least they had him for a few minutes. Miami looked rusty early on, a situation made worse by Bam Adebayo getting into early foul trouble. But Tyler Herro had a spectacular 17-point second quarter to give Miami a 6-point lead at the half. However, Jimmy Butler had rolled his ankle at some point in the second quarter, tried to play his way through it, and then when halftime ended, he was not available for the rest of the night. So Miami going with Gabe Vincent in that starting lineup in the third quarter, and that was an abysmal decision by Erik Spoelstra because they wound up only scoring 11 points in that quarter, completely discombobulated. It looked like Detroit might actually steal a win there until Max Strus came in later on, re-energized the Heat and had some timely shooting. Tyler Herro also provided some great shooting, and the Heat were able to steal, to some degree, a 105-98 victory against the Detroit Pistons. Wes, here we are live with our audience. So hard to take anything away from this game because, first and foremost, it should never have been this close. So I'm trying to keep my emotions in check here because I really feel, one, I'm kind of angry that Jimmy Butler was out there on the floor in the first place. Yeah. Two, I don't know that Miami should have ever been this close in a game against the Detroit Pistons, who were, they were spicy, they were feisty, but it's the Detroit Pistons without arguably their best player. And yet here we are looking to Tyler Herro and Max Strus for some late game heroics just to save the Heat's night here. Where do you want to start off today's breakdown?
This was my least favorite game of the season. It was it sucked to watch. It was just, there was no energy. I don't know. I tweeted this in the middle in the game, and it was totally meant as a joke, like classic trap game kind of situation here. 3 days off, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the mighty Thunder coming into town on Friday. Like, of course you would be caught overlooking the Pistons, but it felt like they were, right? It felt like they just forgot the game was happening half the time. There was no energy, no ball movement outside of Tyler Herro's second quarter and Max Strus's first couple minutes of the fourth quarter. I just didn't see anything from this team that gave me any kind of impression that they cared. And the Pistons, like, we could talk about, they've won a few games recently, and the broadcast tried to sell that a little bit. They stink, man. They're 18-51. They don't have their best player on the floor. There is no reason why this game should have ever been close. I was with you. I was like, maybe this was a good game to rest Jimmy Butler, but he hasn't played a bunch of games recently. So I understand trying to just get him out there and let him get his rhythm and his feel back. But hopefully it's not a long-term thing with him. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. But I hated everything about this game. I really did. I'm glad that they came out with the win, 105-98. Like, cool. But this is one of those games where even when you win, you're not happy with this performance, right? It felt like a loss, and it's just one of those games where you just want to flush it down the toilet and forget that it ever happened.
Look, I have to disagree with that. I made some comments pregame, and of course you're going to label it as that's just my brand, leaning into the fact that I want players to rest. Guess what? This is a game where absolutely Jimmy Butler should have rested. Like, this is the Detroit Pistons, as you pointed out, without Cade Cunningham. You're not proving anything. You're not really getting a lot of consistency here. And look, the team They struggled when Jimmy was on the floor anyway. It had nothing to do with building any kind of chemistry or seeing what your rotations would shape up. Like, this isn't reintegrating Markieff Morris, who made his second appearance for the Miami Heat this season, or Victor Oladipo in his fourth game back from injury. This is Jimmy Butler. We know what we're getting with Jimmy. He's either going to take over a game or he's going to fade off and become the playmaker the way that he's been throughout his career and over the last 3 seasons with Miami. I don't know that there's any real chemistry that you're going to build out of this opportunity. And instead, you wind up aggravating an injury between his ankle, the toe, the constant wear and tear on those gnarly feet that have seen Tom Thibodeau grind them into dust. Like, there's no reason to put Jimmy Butler on the floor against the Detroit Pistons, and it wound up potentially costing him for a prolonged period of time. And now, for the risk of building whatever chemistry you might have, you're going to lose him for a prolonged period of time. Like, yes, he's going to come back. Why? Because he's Jimmy Butler. He's a tough son of a bitch, and that's just what he does. But guess what? You know, you're going to aggravate it at some point down the road, whether it's April before the regular season ends or in the first few rounds of the playoffs. You're a team that's making a run to the NBA Finals. You can't take a chance like that. You've got to sit your guys down.
I'll push back on that a little bit, just because I hear what you're saying. I just, in order to play devil's advocate, like, you don't have that much time before the playoffs, to your point. And this is, I know that you're probably not getting a whole lot of chemistry built in one game against the Pistons, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And this was one of the first games in a while that they've had everybody healthy. And so I get, just try, if you're Eric Spoelstra, just from like information, healthy-ish, no Caleb Martin. I understand just trying from an information standpoint, just be, all right, what does it look like when we do have our regular rotation out there? And even with Caleb Martin being healthy, like, I think he's part of the regular rotation. I just don't know where. I guess you would you start him over, or you play him in the rotation over Markieff Morris, but you want to get Markieff some run here, and they're probably playing it a little safe with Caleb at this point. And so, yeah, I get it. But look, at the end of the day, it probably won't be a long-term thing for Jimmy, and maybe they will use this as an excuse to get him some rest and stuff too. But Jimmy, it just didn't matter to me tonight. There was so much wrong with this game. I'm with you. Like, this is, at the end of the day, it's a win, and you don't want to harp on the negatives too much, but it's really hard just because, again, I hated watching that game so thoroughly. Like, I was looking for anything else to watch. I was watching Kyrie Irving on my second screen. He scored 60 tonight, and I was like, thank God something exciting is happening somewhere else, because this game just sucked. It was awful to watch. It was not a fun experience, and I'm going to try to have fun talking about it, at least.
Yeah, look, to Baby Rage's point here, Dwayne Dedmon also struggling tonight, missing a dunk at the rim, just looked slow. And we've been talking about this for
that was a tough series for him. Missed a dunk and then missed a kind of tip-in layup, and then on the very next possession, fumbled an offensive rebound out of bounds.
Yeah, look, we talked about it. It feels like at least a week that we've mentioning that maybe Omer Yurtseven deserves an opportunity again. Like, we know what Yurtseven can do. Should have been playing out there, just because from a size perspective, he's able to contribute something. I know that, look, we've been consistent about this. Yurtseven is not a perfect player. I know he has his legion of fans out there that can get a little strange and a little passionate about seeing their player in there. We're not claiming that Yurtseven is the best player on the Heat roster or anything like that. But he's proven that he can at least play and contribute. Yeah. He started a number of games when everybody else was hurt, and that's fine. And he should at least be able to go out there and give you 10, 15 minutes. As good as what you're going to get out of Dwayne Dedmon, if not better at this point.
Dedmon just didn't have the leg. He was a minus 23 tonight, David. Minus 23. If we really want to boil down what this game is, Bam Adebayo got into foul trouble early. He picked up 3 fouls in his first 9 minutes and 43 seconds of playing time. The Heat were up 33-27 at that point of him picking up that third foul. He checks out, doesn't really play for the rest of the first half. Bam Adebayo in the game, the Heat outscored the Pistons by 25 points in the 24 minutes that Bam was playing. That's an insane metric right there. That's an insane number. Dwayne Dedmon, this is even more insane. The Heat were outscored by 23 points in his 15 minutes. 14 minutes and 47 seconds for Dedmon. That's really, really hard to do, David. And I'm with you. Like, it was pretty clear by minute 5 of Dwayne Dedmon's 15 minutes that he shouldn't be out there, that he didn't have the legs tonight. They've got... And again, maybe the whole point of tonight's game was we've got pretty much our full rotation in place. Let's see what it looks like as a test run. But this was a really, really bad test run if that was the case. I would have loved to see Yurtseven in there in the second half and no Dwayne Dedmon at all in that second half.
No, absolutely. That was a struggle for him. And look, to our point, Dedmon is not going to be able to show anything different as far as him getting any kind of minutes. There's no consistency building or chemistry building with him out there. He's a rim roller. He's going to be fine. He's going to figure it out. He's a veteran at this point. Like, this team is accomplished and veteran, old enough where I really think chemistry is somewhat overstated. This isn't like guys that have never played together at any point in time. I don't know. I saw this win, and again, like to what you said earlier, you don't want to harp on the negatives, but it's just so hard to take anything positive out of this other than, if not, go for it.
Jimmy Butler was a plus 13, even though he got hurt, but we're not talking about that. We're going to talk about positives. He was a plus 13. PJ Tucker was a plus 14. Bam Adebayo was a plus 25. They crushed the Pistons when their starters were in the game, right? Yeah. And this, I don't want to put it all on Dwayne Dedmon because a plus minus doesn't tell the entire story. But when Bam was in the game, they dominated. When Bam was not in the game, they really struggled with Detroit's size and all of those things. And so maybe in another world where Bam doesn't get into foul trouble early, this game is the blowout that it should have been. I'm hunting for positives right now.
No, that's fine. Look, Bam was really, really good, but I do have a concern that we'll bring up later on the show when we talk about potential playoff rotations and who's in and who might be out and things of that sort. But before we do that, we'll also give credit where credit is due on the players that helped save Miami's night. But just a reminder that this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you haven't heard us talking about us, well, why not? You probably heard us mentioning at some point that it's so hard to stick to your diet. If you're trying to change the way you eat or you're just trying to eat a little healthier, then Built Bar is a solution for you. They've got so many great flavors, all of them filled with protein and the nutrients you might be looking for. If you're looking for some protein-infused marshmallow, that's right. That's a new product that they have. You should go absolutely and check it out. Look, all of their products are soft and easy to chew, 100% covered in chocolate, and all of them are delicious. Maybe even the mint chocolate, although I'm not sure if I could be persuaded into that. But they're great if you're just trying to get a snack on the go, if you're trying to fill something in between meals. If you just need a little energy to help fuel your workout or to get you through a long meeting or something like that, as many people are returning back to offices all around the country and the world, Built Bar is the solution. If you're missing time and you don't necessarily have the kind of time to spare for a full meal, then just grab a shelf of Built Bar and you'll be good to go. Right now, if you go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15, that's LOCKED15, you'll get 15% off your order. But only if you use the promo code LOCK15, and then you'll get 15% off if you go to built.com.
Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free, and it is available wherever you get your podcasts. We've got something fun going on our Instagram account. If you haven't checked it out already, it is the best individual season in Heat history bracket challenge. It's between 2012-13 LeBron. Maybe you think he's the best Heat season of all time. Maybe Dwayne Wade's. Maybe a season from Dwayne Wade's career. Check it out. Go to our Locked On Heat Instagram page and check out the stories to vote there. All right, David. This is a Heat win despite everything we talked about in our first segment. And so it is time to whip up some credit cookies. What kind of cookies are we going with today?
Oh, yeah, you've caught me completely by surprise yet again, because you know what? I actually had bulleted detailed points on my blame pie as far as who was getting it. So I went to the very last thing. I was just thinking, like, even on your beat days, like, how do you write a gamer for something like this that goes down basically to the last wire? Yeah. Like, you're like at the 45th minute mark and you're going, I have no idea how this game's going to end. I just want to write this thing so I can file it before deadline. Yep. It was so impossible. I didn't think about a cookie. Do you have
Baby Rage? Baby Rage says Thin Mint cookies. Ooh,
no,
Steven goes Baby Public Rage, Sugar cookies.
Banned for life.
Thin Mint or Public Sugar cookies? You want to go with Steven's Public Sugar cookies?
Sure. I've never tried them, but I'm sure sugar cookies are great.
What?
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just Girl Scout. I know what Girl Scout cookies are. Rage, and I also know what Thin Mints are. I also know that they're an abomination and shouldn't be consumed by anybody.
You hate mint. Do you like mojitos?
Yeah. Because I catch a buzz. I don't catch a buzz off of Thin Mint cookies. I just go there.
So it's the chocolate plus the mint equals not good for you?
Sweet chocolate or mint, it's one or the other, not combine them. It's like, I don't personally like chocolate and orange or chocolate and other sour ingredients.
See, the chocolate raspberry is like my favorite Built Bar. I love that. Well, fruit covered in chocolate is like
everybody's entitled.
Chocolate covered strawberries.
They're okay. Strawberries are sweet though, not
Jesus
that
Christ.
weird tangy.
What is happening here?
I think it's a pretty logistical or logical approach to things. I'm sorry. I mean, anyway,
Peanut M&Ms or regular M&Ms?
Regular M&Ms.
All right, so I'm picking up on your pattern here, but I can't sign off on it.
Oh, there isn't one. There isn't one. No one's gonna figure it out.
All right, we've got some public sugar cookies to give out. We have 10 of them. Are you ready for how many Max Strus is getting?
Max Strus. Wow. Out of a potential, how many here?
10. It's always 10.
And a 10
same game every win, David. It's the same game.
It feels like it changes sometimes. You always have like an extra. Hey, I found a stash of extra cookies somewhere. So
Max Strus is getting 8 of these public sugar cookies. He's getting 8 of them.
Okay, sure. Why not? I can see it.
He deserves them. The Heat were losing 73-68 at the end of that third quarter. Detroit had scored 19 straight points at that point in the game going into that fourth quarter. The Heat were held scoreless the final 7 minutes of that awful third quarter. And then what does Max Strus do? He checks in at the start of the fourth quarter, and he scores, 13 straight fourth quarter points to put the Heat back into that game. If Max Strus doesn't do that, I don't care about Tyler Herro's second quarter. I don't care about Bam Adebayo's limited contributions despite the foul trouble. The Heat do not win that game if Max Strus does not energize them at the beginning of that fourth quarter. 8 might actually be too few Publix sugar cookies to give Max Strus, but we have 2 more cookies, 2 more people that we have to give the cookies to, and so I'm giving as many as I possibly can to Max Strus.
Look, I don't know. It's hard to disagree with that because you're right. Tyler had struggled in the second half up until that point. Like, I feel like Max kind of gave this team life and then was able to just keep the Heat afloat until Tyler could say, all right, Max, thanks for doing what you do. Now it's my time to shine again later on in the fourth quarter and to provide that little bit of buffer to help seal the win for Miami. But for this, like, I had a question here, and I'm thinking about this, like the way he just caught fire as quickly as he did. Is it he or Tyler who is the most combustible player on offense for the Miami Heat? Because that's a tough question. I feel like
it's still Tyler, because when Tyler goes off for like 20 at a time, right?
It's possible.
I mean, but Strus, man, like, this is not the first time he's done this.
Right.
This is why he gets the minutes late in games over Duncan Robinson, right? And so, I don't know. But the fact that Strus was able to do that, I was wondering if the Heat had saw something in Detroit's defense, or if Strus had saw something in particular. I'd have to go back and watch. We're recording this live right after the game, so we obviously don't have the chance to go back and watch any tape. But I want to go back and watch those 13 points and see, okay, was he going against the same person over and over? Was he just attacking Kelly Olynyk in pick and rolls, or what was he doing? But it was coming at the basket. There was 3-pointers involved, contested shots and everything.
Yeah.
So my first inclination is no. There wasn't something specific like one specific thing that he was attacking over and over again. He just had it going, and they needed it. All right, I know you have a cookie that you want to give out to, so that leaves me with just one more cookie left. I'm giving it to Tyler Herro. 17 points in the second quarter, 9 points in the fourth quarter. Tyler Herro was absolutely awesome in this game. In that first half, David, he was to me the only guy with energy. I was thinking, like, in that second half, even before Jimmy rolled the ankle, bench Jimmy, bench Kyle Lowry, bench everybody. Just put Tyler Herro there with the young guys and just let him have the space and let him cook. That, to me, was the strategy in the second half, or it ought to have been the strategy in the second half. He was the energy in the first half that the Heat desperately needed.
So good. I mean, it's just, we don't get tired of watching this. I know we just debated recently whether he was the sixth man of the year, whether or not he's better than Jordan Poole or vice versa and everything else like that. But when you see Tyler at the top of his game and able to have the kind of production that he did tonight, he's just as fun a player in the NBA as there is to watch. And I know that everybody's going to have their preconceived notion about him, his punchable face, and whether or not he's the snarl, and maybe he's just an annoying asshole or things along those lines. I don't know exactly why people have these opinions, these strong opinions about Tyler the way they do. And yet you watch him, he's just fun to watch. Like, he's an electric scorer, which is like one of the best things about the NBA. You got to love when he has these kind of performances like tonight. And it was a lot of fun to see him have those big quarters, second and fourth. And again, just to keep Miami's chances alive on a night like tonight when nobody else had that kind of energy. But you're right. I did have an extra cookie out for somebody. The cookie goes out to non-COVID related illness for keeping Cade Cunningham out of the game. Because to me, I think he would have been a difference maker, a guy who's flirting with a triple-double, pretty regularly throughout his rookie season. His scoring has been on the uptick. His shooting has been on the uptick. He's found his rhythm after some slight struggles early in the season that I think have been overstated. He's I think, firmly ensconced into the Rookie of the Year conversation alongside Evan Mobley, who we saw had a big game against the Heat on Friday night, and also Scotty Barnes, who continues to provide some length disadvantages for the Heat when the Toronto Raptors match up against them. But I think Cade Cunningham has been a really solid performer. He's had a good season for Detroit, and he would have been a difference maker for the Pistons tonight. Had he been out there, who knows what would have happened with Miami. I don't know if they would have been able to pull away with the victory here.
Cunningham's last 7 games, 23.1 points on 45% shooting, 33% from 3, so that's come around. 8.1 rebounds, 6.4 assists. Turnovers are pretty low. He's getting some steals and some blocks here and there. He's been really good for them. No doubt about it. If he plays in that game, maybe it is different. I don't know.
Yeah,
you're right.
Absolutely. Well, we'll move on and we'll talk a little bit about some questions regarding the rotation. We'll also answer some of your questions here in the chat. So make sure you drop those in so that we can get the answers that you're looking for on this live edition of Locked On Heat. Thanks so much to everybody who's tuned in. But also just wanted to give you a reminder that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, which is daily fantasy made easy. And easy is really what they're all about. As fantasy props and pick'ems get more popular, PrizePicks is making it easy for you to play. They do it with the best NBA DFS prop game on the market, offering more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator. PrizePicks offers any prop you can think of, from points scored to rebounds and even steals. And check out the PrizePicks Power Play. Here's how it works. You predict the over-under on a player's fantasy production, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. And it's just you versus the projected fantasy totals. PrizePicks even allows mixed sport entries. For a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users. They get $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. It's just that easy. But you must use the code NBA. That's right. This is an exclusive offer just for Locked On fans. Sign up today and use the code NBA for $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. Do it all using the award-winning app on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Plus, PrizePicks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. So don't hesitate. Check out PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code NBA or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Speaking of easy, just a reminder that you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskLHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show and leave a review. We know that all of you tuning in on this special live edition are probably subscribed to our YouTube channel, but if you haven't, please do so. That's the best way of getting our content as quickly as we produce it. But today, we are wrapping up our recap of this Miami Heat victory, sort of, over the Detroit Pistons, and we have some lingering questions about the Miami Heat rotation, or at least I do, because I think tonight kind of exposed Miami's most obvious and glaring problem, which is their front court depth. And you look at a team like the Toronto Raptors, and I was just talking about Scotty Barnes in the previous, or even Evan Mobley in the previous segment. Both of those long players. You've got the Cleveland Cavaliers with Kevin Love, Jarrett Allen. That's 3 all-star-ish caliber type players in the front court that can all go in there and provide some length and some, create a disadvantage for the Miami Heat. And if you get Bam into foul trouble, and it's going to happen at some point during their playoff run, who steps up? Is it Yurtseven? Is it Dedmon at this point? I don't know that Miami has a reliable offer.
Well, and then there's Markieff Morris as part of that mix too, I guess. Look, I'm not as concerned with the front court depth as much as I'm concerned about what the Heat are trying to do at this point with Victor Oladipo and Markieff Morris, trying to work them into playing shape with only a handful of games left in the regular season, when Gabe Vincent and Max Strus have been not just solid, but needed pieces for a lot of this season. And you have to be really confident, if you're Eric Spoelstra, that Victor Oladipo is going to give you something more than what those guys can. And we're not even talking about Caleb Martin.
Didn't I tell you last week that I thought Gabe Vincent was better than Victor Oladipo at this point in time?
I think you're right. And I guess if you're Spo, the job is what? Then to sort of project forward and say, all right, can we get something? And so, I understand that you want to give Oladipo a chance because at his best, he is a better two-way player with more experience and all these things and could be a valuable piece. You've got to see what you have. I just don't know how long you can do it for. Maybe to your point earlier, maybe all that working out the chemistry stuff doesn't really matter. And once the playoffs roll around, then you make your decision. You're like, all right, let's just throw Gabe and Max back out there, and we're not going to lose anything. I don't know, but this is becoming now a real decision that Erik Spoelstra is going to have to make when the postseason starts. He does not have to make that decision now. I think you're right now. You're still, weirdly enough, in the information gathering stage, but I don't know how much longer you could do that, because once the playoffs start, then if you're Spoelstra, all this stuff that has been a luxury all season long no longer becomes a luxury. It becomes a decision you have to make, and it could be a tough one.
Yeah, and this is where you need those kind of clearly defined rules on this roster. And right now you've got two players kind of existing in this very nebulous state where you have Oladipo playing 16 minutes and not really doing much. And that, look, I know a lot of Heat fans might be wildly upset and turned off by that kind of statement, but I think it's true. Like a lot of people, maybe even on this podcast, pinned a lot of hope on the return of Oladipo, saying, okay, well, this is the player that you're hoping to get. We got to believe the hype that everybody was making about his return. And, oh, this is the kind of player that we're getting back, all-star level. He's back better than ever. That has not been the case. And I think we're trying to be as objective about this as possible. Just say, you know what, this is the reality, is that he's not the player he once was. He hasn't even been particularly sharp. He has his moments. And then sometimes, even like tonight, he kind of just becomes a little bit different. Like he deferred to Tyler Herro on a number of possessions there, didn't look to score, didn't look to do much of anything offensively. And if that's the case, is he really a better option than Gabe Vincent? And look, then you put Gabe in there when Jimmy gets hurt and he's playing against this lineup and he's struggling in the third quarter, which is partly why they only managed to score 11 points. Neither player in a comfortable place. Both of them rendered ineffective because of Erik Spoelstra's coaching decision. And that's not to knock Spo. He's got a tough decision to make, as you pointed out earlier, but right now, I just don't know that either just commit to giving Oladipo 30 minutes a game or just tell Gabe, I'm sorry, you're not going to play at all for the rest of the season. Because one or the other has to happen, I think.
I think it's okay to play Oladipo 15 minutes a game, because we also need to remember that, Caleb Martin's going to come back, and we assume that he's part of the rotation. Now, I don't know whose minutes he takes. Maybe it's Markieff Morris. I still think that there's something there with Victor Oladipo that is worth exploring. But with Markieff Morris, I mean, we've acted like the Heat have needed this guy all season long as part of the core rotation. Markieff Morris, throughout his career, has gotten benched in the playoffs, right? This is not a guy who sort of rises to the occasion in the postseason. I actually would prefer Caleb Martin or Gabe Vincent or Max Strus in the rotation over Markieff Morris, and I think that's what ends up happening. Markieff Morris's presence on this roster is important. It's important as insurance for in case PJ Tucker gets hurt. In that case, you just slide Markieff Morris into the starting lineup and then maintain the integrity of the rest of the rotation. In this instance, though, with PJ Tucker healthy, knock on wood, hopefully he stays healthy. I don't really see Markieff Morris isn't doing anything out there that's impressing me the way that sometimes Gabe can go off, sometimes Max can go off, and obviously what you're getting from Caleb Martin when he's healthy. This question from Steven Torres is an interesting one. What has to happen for Spo to return to the rotation we were used to? I think it's pretty clear that if Markieff Morris keeps being kind of meh, he's probably out once Caleb comes back. And I just don't know how much longer how long can you wait?
I don't know
to make a decision on Vic.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like at this point, he feels like he's just kind of leaning too completely into this. Well, we've got to see what we get from our guys, and that makes sense. Again, on paper, you think to yourself, well, if you keep getting these opportunities, but is 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 12 minutes, 8-minute stints in each half really enough to kind of build the prolonged chemistry or comfort level or whatever it might be to integrate a player like Oladipo? For Markieff, I think the ceiling's never going to be that high for him. And he already got some playing opportunity just a few months ago, albeit before he was injured by Nikola Jokic. Having said that, Oladipo just hasn't been a consistently healthy player for such a long period of time. He really needs to be more integrated. I don't know if 8 minutes a game is enough, or 8 minutes a half enough to really get him back to where he was. I don't know that we're going to see the rotations ever return to what we're used to. I think it's just going to be Spo making decisions on a night-to-night basis. And sometimes they'll work and he'll look like a genius, and sometimes they won't, and we'll go, what the hell was he thinking? Like tonight, like when he chose to go with Gabe in the third quarter, I think that's kind of a head scratcher. A lot of people had Detroit lost, I think a lot of people would have been calling for Spo and his bad decision making. Maybe that's just the nature of coaching. But
at this point it's hard, and right, like if you're going to only go with one of Gabe or Max in these games because you are committed to Oladipo playing 15 minutes a night or some whatever amount of minutes off the bench, it's hard because part of what made the whole Max, Caleb, Gabe thing work is that you never really knew which one of those guys was going to catch fire, but you knew one of them would. And it's really hard to guess which one of those guys on the bench is going to catch fire when you put Gabe could have easily just walked into the third quarter and done exactly what Max did in the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Sure.
Like we have no idea of knowing. And when you only are playing one or maybe at a time here, you're starting to lose that variance. And even with Victor Oladipo, he's not taking a whole lot of shots here. He's only taken 9 threes now in his first 4 games. And it's not really meant as a slight against Victor Oladipo. Obviously, he's working his way back in. But the Heat did not take a ton of threes tonight. They took only 33 3-pointers in the game, and that's because Max Strus checked in the fourth quarter, and they needed those threes to get back into the game and sort of rejigger the offense. But this is not a team that, since getting Victor Oladipo back, has taken a ton of threes, and that's part of the sacrifice. You're putting a whole lot on Duncan Robinson and Tyler Herro, basically, to be your only 3-point shooters, because Kyle Lowry's just, if you're still waiting for Kyle Lowry to start shooting a bunch, just like that's not happening. There's only a couple games left in the season. It's not happening at this point. So it's just a lot put on Duncan, and it's a lot put on Tyler Herro to kind of be the only floor spacers when you're kind of committing to minutes from Markieff and Victor Oladipo, who are not floor spacers, right? They never really have been. Yeah. Do we want to get to any one more question before we?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, send them in. Send them in. We'll answer them quickly. Lightning round
let's
here.
Do this one. I Baby Rage. Sometimes they just play bad against mediocre teams, but play really good against good teams. Every fan base feels that way about their team. Yeah. I just checked the schedule. The last time the Heat lost to a quote unquote mediocre team, January 2nd in Sacramento, the night before, during a back-to-back set against the Golden State Warriors. This has actually been a team that has played really well against lesser competition. They have not played down to the competition this season. And so I push back against that. Cody writes in, Bam is more versatile. We can all agree. But will Tyler Herro be the face of the franchise in years to come?
Oh, that's a tough one. Given the fact that Bam was here first, I don't think so. I think they'll continue to push him as the face of the franchise, just the way that they do right now with Jimmy, even though you can make a strong argument that Jimmy might not necessarily even be the best player on the team right now. Certainly not as consistent. I think the fan base will always appreciate Tyler Herro more, but I think Bam will be the face of the franchise, at least from the team's perspective.
I think Tyler Herro has more star power. The way that he captures the imagination of the fans at the arena when those games are happening is not something that Bam Adebayo has. It's interesting. I think Tyler Herro could sort of be the face locally where Bam Adebayo is the face nationally, because Bam Adebayo has so much respect. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, it just, to me, it's like Alonzo Mourning was the face of the franchise, but Tim Hardaway was more exciting.
Yeah, that's a really good one, right? I think by most accounts, Bam Adebayo is the better player. Tyler Herro might end up selling more jerseys in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I could see that.
Either way, not a bad place to be. All right, those are all the questions.
Oh, well, thank you so much to everybody who tuned in. Thanks to everybody who sent in questions. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question, if you have other comments, you can always reach out to us again via email, via Twitter. Use the hashtag AskLHeat. We'd love to get feedback from you guys. We'll probably have a mailbag episode coming up in the next few days or next week at some point. We'll also be talking to Nekias Duncan sometime this week. So make sure you stay tuned for that episode. That should be available in the next couple of days. But thanks again for always making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On NBA. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks so much for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, B.